Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Agency Life. We have Rod on the call from London, but he is Canadian. Rod, welcome to Agency Life. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome, an absolute pleasure. I met Rod and his wife Laura last year, and I'll tell you all about the story about how they positively impacted my life with their book recommendations. If anyone's listening to this show, you will have heard me talk about Alison Armstrong, so I am forever grateful to Rod and Laura for opening my eyes to the wonderful world of Alison Armstrong. That's how our conversation started. We were at a digital marketer lunch, and I did not talk about marketing once. I talked about everything else. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have you on the show today. Rod, what is a Canadian doing living in London, running an agency? And tell us all about the name of your agency and everything that goes around it.
Sure. Yeah. So it's funny that you asked that question because we get that question probably from every single Londoner we ever meet. What on earth are you doing here?
Right. Yeah.
As soon as they find out we're from Canada, they wonder why we ever left.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I have been from time to time wondering that myself, but fortunately less often than not. So what we began doing many years ago in Canada was working as a very general, startup agency, really trying to find anybody who would hire us.
Right.
And I don't know how different this story is from others, but we essentially graduated from university and literally the next day entered an entrepreneurial development program, which taught us all about how to run a business. It was an incredible opportunity. 6 months of meeting with real entrepreneurs, real business owners who would come in, not necessarily agencies, but all who knew something about marketing, and who would come in and talk to us about their experiences and what they'd gone through. And also we were able to make a lot of contacts. So as a result, after that 6-month period, we were able to then launch our agency with a book of contacts who, and many of them were actually people who were going with the program with us, who all needed marketing services, obviously. Right. And also their standards were pretty low. So fortunately for us, we got them on board. But yeah, those were the early days. And that was going back now to 1997. So quite a while now. Mm-hmm. And then we got into agency life on a sort of, again, as I said, just finding whoever wanted to hire us, really directionless, to be honest. We were just happy to be doing the work, right? We were just happy to be doing this, something that we enjoyed. And over time, what happened is we started working with more and more healthcare folks. And that, as happens with, I think, a lot of agencies, is that they meet one, refers you to another one in their community, refers you to another one in their community. And that was a good sign, because obviously we're doing something right, because they were telling other people about us.
Yeah, great.
And so as it went on, we started falling into this healthcare area a lot. And that, fortunately, like, I have an interest in healthcare. I've been, my background's in leisure and sport management, healthcare marketing. So that really worked for me. Laura's background is in, of all things, biochemistry and engineering. So, there was a bit of a leap there, but hey, it worked for her too. And one of the things that worked for us really is working with these kind of clients. We found that this was something we really wanted to do. And eventually we fell into refractive surgery, cataract surgery in a big way. And doing a lot of marketing for them. And then we met a surgeon who then moved over to London and wanted to start up a clinic, and then said, hey guys, do you want to come over to London, and I'll pay you to, just come over and do some consulting with me. It turned out to be a 2-week gig. We were like, oh, this is great. Fantastic. London. I mean, listen, for two local yokels from Vancouver, this was like trip of a lifetime, right? To get paid to go on holiday, it's amazing.
The country mice in the big city. I love it.
You got it. Yeah. So it was just like Faisal, out there, the streets were paved with gold or cheese. And yeah, as it turns out, 2 weeks turned out to be 6 months, which turned out to be 18 months. And fortunately for us, this surgeon at the time was very influential, but ended up being one of the most influential people in his niche. And so he became effectively our lighthouse client. And I can't stress enough how important it is to find somebody like that who lets you do stuff try things, learn, but at the same time, as an agency, you can effectively bask in the reflected glory of their success.
Right.
Let's face it, that's how it works. Now, we were lucky. We had no idea that he was going to be this successful, and we had no idea that he was going to be this influential. But as it turned out, I'll be honest, we were massively fortunate to essentially ride his coattails to success. And he became a mentor of ours in the sense of being very, very helpful with understanding the business and getting deep into what these guys care about. And really, before we even knew what an avatar was, we were basically living with one 24/7. So it just made our lives so much easier to plan our business moving forward. Yeah, that's how we got here, and that's how we started.
Yeah, because he would have been the avatar, referring that. If you were to think back now, because obviously there's been subsequent different businesses, what were some of the big benefits you've given? Like, they were the lighthouse and they gave, but what were some of the dark sides? Some days where you went, oh, are all our eggs in one basket? Was there ever a feeling of?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, these many people might not be very au fait with the sort of that private healthcare business. But wow, it is an absolute consuming business, because in this business, it is an absolute relentless pursuit of every single client. Because in laser eye surgery and cataract surgery, the whole point is you treat them, they have treatment, they're done, and it's goodbye. So it's there's no repeat business. It's a one-time thing. So it is a relentless pursuit of leads, converting them, having appointments, treating, and then hopefully possibly getting friends and family referrals at best. Fortunately, the business is very successful in the sense that everybody's happy as a result. So they tell everybody for the first few weeks, and then they move on with their lives and forget all about it. For us, it was an absolute immersion, and we started doing a lot of things that we never did as an agency previously. We started becoming almost full-time participants in the development of this business. And he indeed was our one basket in which we had laid all our eggs, especially being in a new country without a network. That was really, really quite challenging. The other thing too is when we came over, the pound was worth $2.5. So the original arrangement we agreed was terribly disadvantageous to us.
2 weeks in Canadian dollars.
Oh my goodness, it was really, really hard coming over. But then eventually we started, getting sussing the whole thing out, and he helped us loads, and he was very generous, and so that helped. But yes, absolutely, it became a situation where we became employees, and we started realizing this is not what we originally signed up for when it came to becoming entrepreneurs. We were effectively employees of his business. And I owe him so much, but at the same time, it just wasn't right for us. And so we started getting grass is greener syndrome, and then ended up moving back to Canada, play around with that. One thing I'll mention about the trip back to Canada is we didn't actually go back into the agency business in Canada because we were very much at a crossroads. We didn't know what to do. But we ended up getting jobs for a company called IntraWest. And IntraWest is an organization that sells vacation ownership, right? So basically, that's a beautiful synonym for timeshare.
I could read between the lines there.
You could smell my cooking. So the idea here is we went in there and got immersed in basically what we call now, in retrospect, a sales sabbatical. And what that was an incredible opportunity to eat only what we killed. It was 100% commission. And you basically you were month to month. If you didn't make money, they booted out the bottom 3%. The bottom 30%.
Wow.
And it was because they were throwing leads at you. And if you didn't convert them on the day, I mean, you guys know how timeshare works, right? It's like the person comes in and you got to convert them on the day. And if you don't, there's no be-backs. There's no like, oh yeah, this has really been really great, I'll come back to you. There's nothing. It's like, if you don't convert them on the day, it's over. And then next. So what that taught us was how to sell. And I'm amazed we sold anything before that. But at that stage now, we knew there's a technology here. There's a process here. And that just changed everything, because when we learned that insight, it was literally like discovering the Rosetta Stone. And when we learned that insight, it became so obvious to us that we need to get back in business, and we need to take what we've learned and not just use it for ourselves, but also train others in how it's done. Because like I said earlier about laser eye surgery and cataract surgery, it's a sales job. I mean, it's a relentless pursuit of leads. It's an elective product. You don't need it. It's not an appendicitis. You could wait. There's lots of reasons to wait.
Yeah.
So you got to sell. And if you don't know how to sell, you're going to fail. And that was true for our business and has been over the last 20 years. And it's been true for all our clients. So we were early to the punch by offering not just marketing services, which would generate leads, but then our clients would say, well, what do we do with these leads? We can't convert, they're not converting. So then we would train them on how to convert the leads. So we offered a kind of like a 1-2 punch. We'll get you the leads and then we'll train you how to sell them.
Awesome.
And that worked for them.
Which sales wouldn't be a thing that was even remotely mentioned in their medical training.
No.
In even business acumen, I see a lot of that healthcare industry just sort of plonked into a practice with a bunch of other people, and they expect the receptionist to magically transform the whole business, and then the receptionist's not being paid like a business manager, and they go, oh well, the phone's going to ring and this is going to happen. You would have a little, obviously, an awareness of the healthcare industry in the US. Can you explain the difference then between, because we hear of the US, I have a lot of listeners who are in the US, so the healthcare industry in the US, and obviously there's the private sector, versus Canada, versus what happens in UK, Ireland, Europe are more or less the same, I think. Yeah. Is that right?
Sure.
Could you just give a little highlight of the difference? Because I know the Americans will be like, well, what's this carry on?
Well, yeah. So the probably the biggest difference is the fact that, if you're an American and you don't know about the healthcare industry, the private healthcare industry, you might be thinking, well, basically there's tons and tons of businesses, and what they do is they sell their services, and it's like a consumable product, right? Like any service that you would sell. The difference that we have here in the UK and in lots of Europe is the fact that the vast majority of people are accustomed to not having to pay for their healthcare at all, because it's all nationalized healthcare.
Correct.
So these businesses are really the vanguards of commercializing healthcare, and they're facing a situation where it's not traditional at all to pay for your healthcare. So it's even a harder job to market. And the best example I have is cataract surgery. Cataract surgery is available on the National Health Service and has been since the inception, 1949, for free, right? Now, imagine trying to offer a product or a service that for a little bit of a wait, now more and more, could be free, or you could pay me potentially thousands of pounds, thousands of dollars to get it done privately. The challenge of trying to make that sales argument is indeed difficult. So what it taught us to do is really learn how to differentiate and learn how to focus on providing unique selling propositions and benefits that exceeded what was available on the national level, on the subsidized level. So that's the biggest difference, I would say, between places like Canada and the UK, which are kind of similar, actually, more similar than in the US, where in the US, you are in a situation where it is the Wild West when it comes to healthcare. I mean, if you don't have money, no money, no honey, right? It's just like,
you can't even go to ER, like on, there's a whole, if you don't pay your monthly health insurance, but you hope that you have a job that will pay it.
Precisely.
You are pretty much left on your own.
Yeah. Now in laser eye surgery, 100%. Now in laser eye surgery, it's more similar because that is 100% elective most of the time. And so, but in the situation in the United States is, we felt like there was a lot of competition. Now, I'm going to make a point here about this because this was a mistake. Initially, when we were 20 years ago, we looked at the option. We had a gig opportunity in Seattle, and we had a gig opportunity in London. We were debating which one was best. And when we looked at Seattle, honestly, we looked at the market in the US. We knew that market pretty well because we were working in Vancouver, and our whole job was to compete against US clinics to try to bring.
Can fly up and.
That's right. To try to bring Americans to come to the clinics in Vancouver, British Columbia. Why? Because we were more advanced technologically, because we didn't have FDA, suppression.
Right.
We were more on the EU kind of approach. And secondly, our dollar was exceedingly advantageous to the American dollar. So everybody got a discount, effectively.
Right.
Every American got a discount.
Yeah.
Now, we were always competing with the US clinics on that basis, but for our clients. But we basically sold ourselves short because we felt that we could not compete. We didn't know enough. We weren't experienced enough. We weren't capable enough or smart enough to compete in that pond.
Yeah.
And so we were intimidated. And in retrospect, I can see that was 100% mistaken, because even 20 years later, I look now at the US market and I think to myself, wow, like it's so underdeveloped. I could absolutely serve clinics in that market and totally kick ass. But that's the thing. It's like at that time, and maybe I couldn't then, I don't know, but I have a feeling that, given the opportunity to compete in that market, I basically made the decision for my market and said, I'm not good enough for you. Right. And I think I just want to pass that on, because I when I think about all the things that I did wrong, that is definitely one of them. I'm so happy that I ended up in London. I'm so happy that I live in Europe. I couldn't be happier, and it's completely changed my life, and I love it. But I sometimes I wish I had a doppelganger who I could have left.
That sliding doors feeling.
Exactly. because here's the thing. I know that businesses that's like very similar agencies like us who got their start, like 20 years ago, nobody was doing what we're doing.
No.
But 10 years ago, a lot of clinic owners and clinic managers and marketers who kind of grew up in those settings decided, hey, I can do this myself. There's other agencies doing this. I'll do this, and I'll start offering the services. They started off much more less time ago than us, maybe 5 years, 10 years from now. And many of them actually have more clients and more business than we do now. And so, it's all about that big pond mentality. If you undermine yourself, you have no idea what you might be missing out on. So that's probably, Rod's pearls of wisdom number one.
Back yourself.
Yeah. Don't make your client's decision for you.
Right. Yeah. Don't make assumptions, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what would be the three things that you would say you do now that the three things that you are not seeing in the US? Like if you were to go, say, I'm going to pick you up and I'm going to plot you over back into Seattle right now, and you're going, go, you've got your agency. What are the three things that you're doing that's working really well for your clients, that you would take over, that you see that gap in the States?
Yeah, I mean, another massive learning that here's the other thing too, is like, just maybe it was about 5 years ago, I got to the stage in my life, and I think many men might get here at around the age of 45, where they think they know everything. It's like, okay, that's it. Everything there is to know, I got it. I learned it. Job done.
Finished.
Okay,
I am
excellent.
an encyclopedia.
Yeah, moving forward, let's go on coast. And so I realized I didn't. And the way I realized it is because I got in touch with a digital marketer who completely changed the way I view what I do. And I realized many of the things I was doing okay, but many of the things I had no idea about. And so that's pearl number 2.
Love it.
Never stop learning. My God, I spent potentially 15 years of my career thinking, and I grew up really quite, I have to say, much more arrogant than I am now. I am much like 100% more humble, because I learned what I didn't know. And I realized that all this time, I had positioned myself in a situation where I was kind of, that high school kid who moved on and came back to the high school and started playing football with the 13-year-olds. I was kicking ass, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing. Look how awesome I am.
Easy.
But I had put myself into that sort of artificial position, and instead of actually playing with the big boys. And one thing for sure is learning what I learned through Digital Marketer. I have found that there has been a tremendously slow adoption in the United States on those principles that I know work very, very well. When we started putting them into our processes, we changed everything we did.
Yeah.
We completely threw out all our old types of projects, decided to plot everything along the customer value journey. And also not just learning from digital marketer, but everybody in that community. My goodness,
I know, right?
That is absolute. Like, I can't tell you how many new things I've learned through that community alone that have completely changed how we do things. So that's one thing. If I were to go back and like plunk myself into the US, I know right now, just with what I have learned through digital marketer and through the community, that I would be able to dominate the vast majority of marketing agency offerings for my market in the US right now.
Yeah.
And I've had early signs of that, because most recently, as a result of this coronavirus pandemic, we have had to branch out. I mean, you can imagine, Clodagh, when you have one type of client, when you have one niche, your only option is, once you've basically saturated your local market and your national market, and because that's a big deal, right? Like, the guy on Harley Street doesn't want to be competing with the guy on Devonshire Street who does exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So we gotta walk that tightrope, and we have successfully over the last 20 years. But now, with the potential reduction of, laser eye surgery is completely crashed, like so
that's
many.
Right. Yeah, and all elective surgery off the cards 100%. Right now. Yeah.
So what?
Nowhere.
Exactly. So what that impetus was to make us go expand geographically, because look, in Australia, no problems. It's okay. Like, yes, they had a little bit of a slowdown, but it's nothing like what we're facing here.
No.
Fortunately, we've been making inroads internationally for quite a few years. It hasn't been just all of a sudden because of coronavirus, but we've been making inroads internationally. We've expanded in that, fearlessly, I should say, in contrast to the way we were in the past.
Right.
I mean, some would say, picking up sticks and moving to a whole new country where you had no network was also somewhat fearless.
Correct.
But
20 years ago, though.
Yes, 20 years ago, and at the same time, we had a pretty cushy,
you had your key cornerstone client as well,
precisely.
to sit under their wing.
Exactly. Yeah. No. I don't for a second underestimate how lucky we were. But since we've expanded our business, we've expanded into the UK, we've expanded into Europe, we've expanded into Asia, we've expanded into Australia, and now we're in a position where now we're beginning to expand into the US. And we've done it at a time when no one would have ever expected. And why? Because all of a sudden everybody's paying attention, right? It's like these eye surgeons have their faces in microscopes pretty much every single day.
All day. Yeah.
And
or a file, or they're dealing with their own practice.
Yeah.
They are back to, there is no buffer time.
Absolutely.
There's no down clarity time with them in their normal lives.
100%. And the other thing too is they're mainly because medicine is a very autocratic kind of model. It's very top down, because that's how they grew up. That's how they were trained. It's very, very, very modeled after the military, in fact, in terms of how they manage. Very hierarchical. So our clients, their businesses are run mainly by the person at the top, which is typically the surgeon, who is the most busy person in the entire establishment. And so trying to get their attention has been one of the biggest challenges we've had. Fortunately, I know it's a terribly unfortunate circumstance, but fortunately for us, we've had the amazing opportunity to get their attention now.
Right.
Because they have time. Mm-hmm. And so that's allowed us to properly build upon the initial kind of tentacle reachings that we created in the initial phase many years ago. And now in this particular opportunity, we're able to capitalize on that. So that's the thing. It's like, we had thought for a really, really long time that our market was local. And then on the basis of requirement and need, we realized we got to expand. So what did that do? Well, that challenged us in many ways. We had to, in healthcare, every single country has different regulations. Every single country, especially in Europe, my goodness, every country has a different language. So how can you do digital marketing and sales training in Spanish? How can you do it in French when they're not even allowed to advertise in France? How can you do it in German when the culture is completely different? How can you do it in the Czech Republic? So on and so forth. So we were challenged tremendously in trying to expand by necessity into all these different markets, and had to do things in so many different ways. So now for me, honestly, going into the US feels honestly like a cakewalk, because it's the same language. I know tons of people there.
Yeah.
We're 20 years into this business, usually double at what anybody else is. So for me, it's like, it's open season. So yeah, here we are.
Fantastic. So how did you, because this is great advice for, and anyone who's listening to this, people listen to my show over the course of a year. I'll have someone going,
Sure.
We've been going for nearly 2 years now. So it goes on. So we're recording this in the beginning of May 2020.
Yes.
We've just come out of like more or less 7 or 8 weeks of lockdown. We've all been sent to our homes. So what was that moment that you, yourself and Laura just sat down and went, okay, we have this content, we've done it really well for the UK market. How did you bridge that? What was the first step to go, how do we expand this? What was that first marketing step? Because I can imagine there's agencies out there who are very similar to this, who are doing an absolute excellent job in a particular region, and just because of busyness or because there was no necessity to do, I've never thought about expanding out to another geography. So what was the first step in that, Rod?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously over time, I would have to say that the number one reason for this is not simply because we're so good that, we attracted attention internationally, but rather because we're so niched. So that was number one. If we had not niched as deeply as we have, and come on, I mean, laser eye surgery and cataract surgery marketing.
That's pretty niche. that's very niche.
And I have lost many nights sleep pondering the question, are we too niched? And thinking, my goodness, how, like, I know that there's probably, at least in the UK, there's probably 500 potential customers. That's really not a lot. It's not sufficient to build a career upon. It might be, it's well enough to build a couple of years and 3 years, something, but for a career, it's hard. And the other thing too, is I expected, like probably everyone else in my industry, that laser eye surgery and cataract surgery privately would take off. And really it's been flat. Like since 2001, the prices haven't gone up,
right?
And the volumes haven't gone up. In fact, after 2008, the volumes went 50% after the financial crisis. So we've not been in a growing market, and we've been niched very, very specifically. So I felt a lot of times that, we were victims of our niche, but now I couldn't be happier, because as it turns out, when you are so niched, you become very much in demand, because there's nobody else who does what you do. And customers out there, regardless of how similar their businesses are to other people's businesses, they think that their business is the most unique thing in the entire world. It's like a snowflake. There's not another one like it. Yeah. So their idea is, well, if you know my business, then that's 50% of the battle, because I have to spend with all my other service providers, the guys who sold, whatever product out there, I have to translate everything that I do. And I live in such a very, very tight niche that I have to basically provide them a language lesson, first of all.
Got it. Yeah.
My jargon,
the acronyms,
my concepts, the industry dynamics, the avatars I'm trying to attract, what are their concerns. And so we developed that deep, deep, deep understanding of their avatars, so that they would then eventually begin in their industry, their competitive landscape, so that all of a sudden we were the people to go to for this. And so now that alone wouldn't have been sufficient, because we're also in an environment where we have pretty slow movers.
They're very considered. They're not knee-jerk people. They're certainly not digital marketer personalities where we'll sign up for something before the video is finished.
Absolutely.
We're like, credit card out. I mean, they have a long thought process. They're academics, they read things, they research things, they're competitive, they take their time.
Yeah, I mean, the reason one becomes a doctor is because you hate risk. Right? It's like, I'm going to sign up for a job where I'm always going to be in demand. I'm never going to be lacking employment. And I'm going to get a really, really good steady paycheck for the rest of my days and live comfortably, forever. So here's the thing. It's we have a very, very high risk averse market. So we didn't get a lot of people coming out of the woodwork saying, hey, can I use you? On top of it, a lot of people think that what we do in our industry is in healthcare is dirty. A lot of these people don't just do private surgery. They do, public healthcare. And so the idea of selling healthcare in Europe is a little bit like, whoa, really? We can do that? So
Right.
we're
They
doing a lot
never
of
even thought of it.
exactly. So there's a lot of market education to do too. But here's the thing: is another little pearl I would suggest to people is one big way is to leverage partnerships. Because if me and Laura, and for a long time, we were a tiny little agency, and to be honest, we're still really tiny, but we were like so tiny, we were like, you know, on the toes of tiny, but to the point where we had no ability to really penetrate international markets. We didn't have the ad budget. We didn't have the ability to get out there. So what we needed to do is find people who did have that influence. And so in our environment, what we have are people who sell other things to the people we sell to.
Got it.
And those are medical device companies and pharmaceuticals. So they have enormous reach and they have big budgets. But at the same time, they don't need our services. They go to the big boys, right? And they have a different challenge.
Yeah.
It's not about sales so much. It's different. So what we did is we said, look, and we had to. Yeah. So being so small, we really needed the helping hand of other organizations, and especially those organizations that were marketing directly to the clients that we could get. And so those organizations were medical device companies and pharmaceuticals, and also the societies in which these doctors belong, because they have their ear, they have their time.
Right.
So we started prompting the society, hey, you guys, maybe you should be thinking of offering these folks some business support, because they come to you for scientific and medical and research support, you know, and they come to you for that networking opportunity. Maybe some of them have an interest in the practice development of the business side of things, marketing. And they started like inviting us for 1 hour at a time. And, you know, like we've been doing it now for 12 years, but they asked us for 1 hour at a time, and we'd go, you know, we'd go to where the conference was, we'd do an hour, we'd do a little talk and so on and so forth. And that got us a little bit further in front of the medical device companies, because we were able to network with them there. They had time. They were all about networking, you know, in that moment, because they're keen to meet everybody. And then slowly, through our clients who used certain medical device companies, they started saying, hey, you know, it'd be really great if I got some support from these guys on a marketing level. So, hey, for example, companies like Zeiss, companies like Alcon, companies like Bausch & Lomb, hey, would you guys mind, you know, you guys really want me to do well and buy all your equipment. Well, would you guys mind helping me market my practice too? So, you know, if you can think about it, it's almost like this push-pull thing, you know, in typical marketing, where, you know, you go to your OEM and you say, hey, Microsoft, would you mind throwing me some, you know, co-pay ad budget so that I can market your product in my computer store, right? So it's kind of like that. And so the idea here was that they started hearing from all these different angles. And that's, again, the power of the niche, the power of being able to focus. So our customers would start talking to the medical device companies. We were talking to the medical device companies. We'd be talking to the societies would be talking to the medical device companies. And it would, this internal
just kept going around,
kept going and going and going. And eventually we started, like, make a long story short, we now are like, you know, we're standard at the conferences. Like if we're not there, people are like, what happened to those guys?
Why are you not there?
We are there every single year. We have a full day where we get an opportunity to talk to our best prospects. We either do some instruction, or if we moderate other people who have now come out of the woodwork to become advisors. Like I said, you know, we've been at this for 20 years, but other people have been at it for 10. That's the other thing too. Cooperate. They're not my competition. Just bring them in. You know, I've gone out to my quote unquote competitors and say, hey, I have in on this conference. You do this really, really well. Do you want to come and talk about that?
Yeah.
And if they have an affinity towards this market and have some experience in this market, you know, I don't want just anybody. I want people who also want to kind of niche into this a little bit, and I invite them in. And so now, you know, helping bring more value to this market has been super, super helpful. And then also now with these medical device companies, we have made arrangements with them in many cases to because they run a consumables business. So basically it's imagine this, they basically sell a printer. They actually sell a laser, but they sell a printer, but where they make money, they keep the printer quite cost low, but where they make money is on the ink.
On
right?
the ink.
So it's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Getting that brand in there so that the supply.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
So companies like that are very reliant on volume. They want these surgeons to do well. They want these surgeons to do a lot of business. So they see us and go, wow, you can help me build my business and my client's business. And if I can co-sponsor some of that work, I look like the good guy. I look like the hero. And then everybody wins. And that's exactly what it's about. It's about setting up as many partnerships and as many networked relationships that you can. And again, I can't stress this enough. If you're not niched, you're so defocused, it's hard to do that. It's hard to establish that network. Like I don't have a massive LinkedIn network. I've got maybe 1,000 contacts, but 95% of them are in my niche, right? So that is absolutely key, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the other 5% are like high school friends and university friends and things like that, so, but that's, it's central. Like that niche has helped us so much, that it's enabled us to make very, very credible introductions, self-introductions, and have credible introductions from others in the niche. Yeah. And we have now become, we're a household name in our niche. And that's, that's it.
I think the niche thing has been a tricky one. If you were like, I think the niche is an exceptionally good idea if you can balance it with geography, because you've just brought up something really key right now with what's happened over the last few months. There's a lot of agencies who were niche, but were niche in one country, or niche in one language, or niche in one very, very tight strain, and it didn't. When the pandemic hit and things were shut down, they were very badly affected because they weren't working in lots of geographies, or perhaps the niche wasn't on a tiered way, if that makes sense. It was too specific. While you want to be specific, you also have to be adaptable, like you've just said. Right down in Australia, nothing's, and New Zealand's just started to open up, great opportunity there, and they speak English. Australia is going to be the same. The ability to work in different countries, I think, has been a huge one. So with the conferences that you used to go to, have you switched to your marketing to do any online activities? Have you been doing webinars instead, or what's the kind of difference now that we're not allowed to shake hands, hug, none of it?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like, the number one difference is what I alluded to earlier, is that we have people's attention. That's huge. And I've been banging this drum with my own clients. Is look, all of a sudden, people have been go. Now you have their attention.
They have loads of time,
and they're all thinking about what are all my sort of, to take the Covey's cube. It's like, what are my sharpen the saw activities? What are the things that I can put in quadrant 4 kind of thing, So this is a great opportunity, because people are actually thinking long-term, because they have no option. They can't be thinking short-term. They can't be thinking about where am I going to go this weekend, or what am I going to do tomorrow or this afternoon. They have to think, what am I going to do in 3 months? Right.
Yeah.
So they're in a great position, our customers and their customers as well. So that message is the same. It's like, just like we're talking to you with your awareness, you guys should be talking to your customers with their awareness. And so that's helped. And the rise of Zoom, the rise of webinars, the rise of, fortunately, we were very fortunate. I can't say this enough. Is like, we, again, out of necessity, we've had to be inventive. So for a long time, we couldn't, we ran this business from our home, and when we'd get employees, we'd sometimes we'd actually to bring in interns who, would come in, and they were from other countries, and they'd have to go back, but then we train them. So we had to learn 10 years ago how to work with people in Germany, how to work with people in Spain. That's helped a lot, because it's helped broaden our language as well, ability. But also, with that said, we've also been able to learn how to work remotely for years and years and years. So, on March, I think it was March 12th, I know it because it was my birthday, I said to everybody goes home. That's it. And this was like 2 weeks before lockdown. You guys were a touch behind. So everybody in our co-working space, because we were in the co-working space at the time, and they were like, what are you doing? What were you going home? what is it overreaction? You know, don't worry, you'll be back in a week. No. We were gone. And because, you know, safety first, right? You know, so that was key. But as it happened, we were able to kind of flow into this remote working thing really easily.
Yeah.
And it was like every single other day, really. It was nothing. And everything's on the, in the cloud, everything, you know. So anyway, that's probably, I would imagine most people who are listening to this are probably in that.
Most agencies, absolutely. Yeah. If they hadn't been working from home, or they were thinking about it, definitely. And they are. Yeah. And what they struggle with is to figure out why their clients haven't been transitioning as simply as they have.
Right.
But it's a personality thing as well, Rod. You know, we're a lot more in the digital agency and marketing arena. We're a lot more open to change. We accept change. We take 100%. Things on, and we drop things as well. We go, no, that's not working. Bye. Let's pick this up. We have a different, flexible kind of growth mindset as well. And some of the companies are still struggling, even though it's 8 weeks at home. Obviously, the laser, that's going to be different. They can't. There's no work. So, you know.
Yeah. So with them, we have been very proactive. I mean, here's what we did. First of all, I mean, we had a plan of figuring out, okay, we got to reach these people in some other way. So like, to your point, you got to be flexible, right? Yeah. So we're accustomed to selling retainers. And for good or ill. I've heard a lot of sort of back and forth on the pros and cons, and I'm 100% open. But, you know, typically our typical retainer is about 25 to 30,000 pounds for a year. And it's not much, but these are small businesses. And as it turns out, we had to think to ourselves, are we really going to expect that people, when they're shut down for potentially 2 months of not getting any income, have furloughed their staff and are thinking, you know, they have no idea what's going to come. Are we really going to expect any sales over the next 2 months or 3 months? Probably not. And so we had to very, very, very quickly identify how we were going to change our approach and generate value so that we could still get paid. Right. And so what we decided to do is we teamed up, again, partnerships. We teamed up with a fellow digital marketer from the United States who does what we do. His name is Michael King. He may be more than happy for
I know Michael, yeah.
Of course.
I know Michael. Yeah,
Michael's a great guy.
Michael. He's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was beautiful about that relationship is the fact that we are essentially, it's almost like we're from the same neighborhood, because despite, you know, living in 2 different continents, we kind of grew up with the same culture because we're both digital marketing people, right? So we talk the same language, we have the same views. There was no sort of like, oh, you do it that way? Oh, no, we do it this way. None of that. So
your processes were all aligned.
Exactly. So it was a perfect partnership. And we've been talking for years about how we could do things together, but this just catapulted it. And so what we decided to do is we decided to get together and put on a course. And it was basically how, you know, look, you got time, doctor, you got, you know, your team might be furloughed, but they can still train because that's okay during furlough. Then we're going to offer you a course and we're going to sell it to you at a relatively low price, you know, nothing close to what our retainers do it for you services. But we basically invented a do it yourself service, like literally within a week. Brilliant. And then we had to figure out, okay, so 8-week course, what are we going to sell it for? We figured that out. Something, you know, approachable, something that wouldn't scare them, and then where we could give good value. And then what we did is we wrote this massive blog post, first of all, which was basically Laura and I, we decided, okay, we got to be thought leaders here, right? And we've tried to do this in our blogs in the past. You know, we don't just write about, you know, hey, you know, you should do this tactic and you should do that. We try to position ourselves as like, we see the future. We know what's coming for the industry, right? Because again, so niched, we're able to focus specifically on what's going to happen with our industry. And our predictions, they don't always come true, of course, but they tend to be kind of close because we know this space so well. And so we wrote this massive blog post. It was literally about 5,000 words. And it was all about what's going to happen in the future. And that's what all these guys were wondering. That's the big question, right? What's going to happen in the future? So we created this chart with, we're going to go through these 5 phases. We're going to go through panic. We're going to go through, denial, then panic. Then it's going to everybody's going to boredom. That could last, potentially 2 or 3 months. Then people will start to have hope. The people are going to be, we're going to be reopening soon. What do we do then? And then we're going to go into what we call the new normal. And I know everybody's using this new normal, and I know they all got it from me.
You started it.
Clearly the first. But we laid out this model, and basically what we did is, it's always risky when you try to predict the future, right? Because you're 50% right, 50% wrong. It's a coin toss. But we decided to make a really educated guess about what was going to happen. And then we decided to say, okay, if this is going to happen, guys, then this is what you have to do at every phase. So we basically said to everyone, this is how you have to engage with us, whether you do it yourself or whether we do it for you. This is what is going to have to happen at every phase, regardless of where you are in the world, because you're all going through these different phases.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Australia's going to be a little later. Britain's going to be a little earlier. Italy's way ahead. And US is, we all know where US is. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. That's another podcast.
100%. Yeah. Call it the waiting room before Hades.
Pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much.
God bless their souls. Anyway, so we decided, okay, we're gonna like tell you this is what the future is going to look like, and this is what you have to do at every stage. So we effectively controlled the conversation from the get-go. We sent that out as a big resource to everybody. Awesome. They were loving it because, oh, thank goodness, somebody thinking about my market, somebody's thinking about my business and what's going to happen, and telling me what what they think. And maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but so far they've been right about a bunch of stuff. And actually, as it turns out, week after week after week, we were so lucky because our predictions have actually come true almost precisely.
Wow.
So again, going on a limb, stepping out there, throwing your thought leadership out there and telling people, nobody's ready to say this, but I'm going to be ready to say this. And you could be wrong, but that's what risk is about. Then we took that blog post, put it into a webinar.
We'll put a link in for both of those, the blog post and the webinar. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So we basically, after writing that blog post, then we made slides for the webinar. And that was our, if you haven't read this, then here's our webinar. Right. And again, it was probably 95% education. Probably the longest webinar in existence. It was 2.5 hours. It's about 2.5
hours, yeah. But you sent it through to me. I have it sitting there and I'm going, okay, roll up my sleeves, get ready for this one.
Here's the thing. I would never, ever advise anyone ever to do a 2.5 hour webinar, right? Who's got that kind of brain power?
Right.
But here's the thing. We are in extreme times. I mean, these doctors are hugely, they've sat through 14 years of school. They can sit through a 2.5 hour webinar.
That's nothing to them. Yeah.
If their livelihood and everyone they care about and to provide for and protect is dependent on it, right?
Yeah.
So that was essential. So, and let's be fair, we didn't plan 2.5 hours. We basically, we did our very best.
Yeah. You just let it go. Yeah.
We just let it go.
Yeah.
And then what we did is we sold the course on the back of that. And here's the thing. The course was peanuts. It was $3,000 or $3,000 a pop, 8-week course. And had we made the course? No. Are we making it just basically the day before we release it? Yes.
Yes. But you have all the materials and everything.
Exactly. It's all inside you. It's all inside you.
Yeah. And what kind of stuff are you doing on the course? What does the course involve?
Yeah. So, we're following our model that we talked about, but we knew first and foremost, the very first thing these folks needed, because we really got into their heads. And the very first thing these folks needed was virtual consults, right? Because look, you can't see anybody, right? For obvious reasons. So you got to get them, but you got to communicate. So virtual consults was first. How to get that set up, really, really simple stuff. We spent 90 minutes on that and did a question and answer for the following session. And then the next week was all about, okay, let's look at your homepage. Let's figure that out. Let's go through it. Let's analyze it. Because look, if you don't have a homepage right now, you have time. You have time right now to improve that, because
that's right. Your keywords, your
exactly. Get all that sorted out.
Yeah. People are still going to be researching online.
Exactly.
Patients have time to go, hang on, I was booked in for somebody, but let me now, while I have these few weeks, let me weigh up my options.
Exactly. So get that message through, get that message clear, stop messing around with all the stuff that, confuses your audience. People need to understand really, really what you are offering right now. And then of course the idea of integrating virtual consults into all their websites, because that's a thing, you got to make sure that it's all kind of working together and that the calls to actions are all calling to action for the right things, not like, call us because there's nobody in, or make an appointment, which you can't do. So there's that. 1 second, I'm just going to actually pause.
Sure.
Because Laura, could you just close the door? We're actually, so, okay.
Look, we're in unusual times. I have hilarious stories about all the different things that have happened on podcasts and meetings over the last. A little bit of background noise. We're all good, but okay, yes, cool. Carry on.
Yeah. So where was I? I don't remember. I'm afraid. I don't remember at all.
The course.
Oh yeah, the course.
So one of the things was the homepage. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the third week, we decided to focus on, what was it? My goodness, it's gone so quickly. I'm just amazed at how quickly we pulled this off. Yeah, the third week was it lead magnets? I know the fourth week was lead magnets. We did something else on the third week. I can't remember what it was. I'm so sorry. But they're all.
But the whole point is basic things. I think
when
you've been running an agency for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I call it Jetsons syndrome, and the new kids won't know what I'm talking about. But when we were kids, we were all watching the Jetsons, going, "Oh, we'll 5 years time, we're going to be in a jetpack. That's going to be great." Do you have a jetpack? I don't have a jetpack. So,
not yet.
But anyone who works in the digital marketing space, they because we're today, we operate in terms that we forget that people don't even know what the basics. They don't know what lead magnet. What's a lead magnet? We talk about it all the time. What's an avatar? Yeah. So you made a course getting back to basics of all the things that people can do. Exactly. And did you do it for them, or was it that you would go? Did they have an option then going, "Oh, I can do the homepage," or then they went, "Actually, I need help with the homepage"? Was that the next?
This has been, honestly, like I said earlier, I did not expect anybody to be able to fork out 30,000 pounds during a global pandemic, right? And also basically on the eve of potentially the worst recession since we called it a Great Depression. Okay. So, but the most surprising thing as a result of doing this course was the back end. As we're teaching how to do these things, they're looking at it, they're going, "Wow, this is super interesting. This is super cool and super I'd love to do this." And we encourage them as much as possible. Here, try it. Here's the resources. Here's a template. Here's a tool. We're going to do all this stuff for you. And we've given them value. But at the end of the day, as we all know, in every single course or every single book anyone's ever read, you think it's great, you think it's wonderful, but you take maybe 5% away to actually implement. And the rest of the 95%, you say, "I wish I could have, would have, should have implemented that when I had the time." So the most impressive and surprising thing to me, that on the back end of this course, we have literally, I've lost count, but the last week, and even more news came in this week, but we have literally sold half our annual income since the course began 4 weeks ago.
Amazing.
In retainer projects.
Right.
So in the space of 4 weeks, we have sold a year's worth of work on the back of this course. Now, is it because the course is so amazing? Well, I like to say it's a good course, but it's not amazing. I mean, maybe it's amazing for some, but it's not a revolution, right? It's all stuff we've been talking about for years. On blog posts, on, in face-to-face, one-to-one meetings, at seminars we've done, at the agencies, at the conferences, exactly, or at the user meetings for our medical device companies that we work with. But the thing is that we've never, ever, ever had, again, the attention that we have right now.
Yeah.
And it's incredible, because leveraging that, being ready, critical, but leveraging that attention through a course where they're basically sitting with you for 3 hours a week, 90 minutes, 2 sessions a week. Basically, we're just building so much trust every single minute. And they're like, "Could you do this for me, please?" And we're like, of course.
No problem.
Yeah, no problem. Get in the queue.
I think you bring up something really relevant. There's so many angles on this as well. And even if someone's listening to this, we're going to put this out fairly quickly. So this will be out in May. So even if you're listening to this in May, right? And I'm going to tell you, you might be in a country where you're listening and going, "It's okay, the lockdown's going to come out soon." We're not over. That lockdown's going to lift. Our numbers are going to flip out again,
100%.
and we're going to all be back home again. So I would suggest anyone who's in any agency right now, start now with the back to basics, with a get out of the jetpack and get on the ground again, to go, what is an 8-week webinar that you can do? People might get busy and get back on the ground, but within a month, I reckon, you know, and I'm no doctor, obviously, but I know, I can see what's going to happen. We're going to get out and we're going to be back home again.
Yes.
And so that is a great thing to do. Also, there's a number of different angles there. You did not, like, making presumption about the way we run our businesses and these, especially the industry that you work in with the laser and cataract, because they're so risk adverse, these people could have a year's worth of revenue sitting in the bank, and that to them is a bit scary.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. You nailed it. That's so true. For most of us, we'd be like, oh, let's, you know, take a year off and take
3 months. Yeah, I've got 3. But they would like, I've only got a year's worth of revenue in the bank. Is a baseline standard. A 30 grand investment then could have been, they were planning to buy a new car, and now this has happened. They're not even touching their old car, and they're saying, do you know what, instead of that 30 grand for the car, I'm going to put that 30 grand into my business, plus I have the time to give it. So never ever make any presumptions about people, their finance, what they have. I've heard loads of stories of people who have absolute massive cash reserves because that's the way they run their business. They don't run it the same way. Also, there's another dynamic which I've noticed as well. It tends to be a little bit with the gentleman, because everyone's at home. I don't think I've ever seen everyone's garden so freaking tidy. I'm in the countryside, and I honestly swear people are out with rulers measuring their hedges. But there's men I've never seen out sweeping the front of their house, right? So they're out doing the garden, but if they can dedicate some time as well to go, sorry honey, I can't do I can't mow the lawn for the second time this week. I can't brush the lawn or the driveway. I'm going to do this training, it's good for my business. They're actually looking for something to give them that work backbone. So you're doing everyone a favor, just giving them something to do as well. I think it's fantastic. And so long may it continue. So I don't care when you're listening to this, it is a time to get back to basics, to get into those industries that you're talking to. I think that's fantastic, and long may it continue. Now, Rod, we don't all talk about the good times and the successes. We do like to bring some aha kind of, I remember when that happened. So when we think back on the agency, you know, before what was going on, what was one of the things that you wish you had done quicker, or mistakes that you kind of went, oh God, you know, I wish I wouldn't get into that situation, that an agency might listen to? And I know there's probably loads, because every agency owner says the same, but what would be a big one that you went, you know what, I really shouldn't have done that would help an agency owner today?
Well, I think we probably covered one of them, which was making our markets decision for them by saying, oh, we're not good enough. We aren't ready. We're not sufficiently experienced, whatever. And certainly in the current climate, it's like, oh, you don't have enough money. You know, oh, we don't want to bother you. You know, whatever it is, you know, stop making decisions for other people. Let them make their own decisions. You know, don't reject yourself, you know, and go to them and let them reject you. I know it feels sometimes harder, but let them reject you, because, you know, why the other way around? So that's one thing. And I see that as a theme of whenever we have not capitalized on an opportunity, or whenever we've looked back and said, you know, woulda, coulda, shoulda have, it's often as a result of our own doing. It wasn't necessarily because someone told us, no, you can't do that. No, we told ourselves we couldn't do that. Yeah. At the same time, on the other hand, of course, you know, coming out of school at the age of 26 and 24, we probably had no business, you know, going out there doing things that, you know, people don't feel ready for until they're 40 or 50. However, nobody told us we couldn't do it, you know. So at that stage, you know, it kind of works for you, which works against you. But so there's a couple of things there. But the other thing too, I think that, I mean, one of the things that Laura and I have, and Laura's my partner in the business and in life, and one of the things that we have obviously a challenge of is trying to manage a business as a couple. And fortunately, I believe we have evolved through those challenges that are inherent in every one of those situations. I mean, people ask us all the time, is like, how can you possibly number one, how could you possibly leave Vancouver to move to London? And number two question is, you work together 24/7 all the time?
Together.
How do you do that?
Right.
I would have killed my partner if that was the case, after the first 2 or 3 years. We're always astounded by all these stories of people now having to be in this sort of imposed union with others. And I'm not for a second underscoring the fact that, or rather underplaying or underestimating the fact that there are some real issues that, around the abuse and things like that, and, codependent relationships. But, this is another thing that for us has been amazingly simple, is that, we live and work 24/7 with each other. It's never been an issue. We obviously have arguments. We sometimes have highly vociferous arguments, but we've managed to get through them really. And this has been a learning, certainly, is by deciding which was our turf. This is my area. This is your area.
Absolutely.
And having whenever we can't fall into trouble has been, in the past, has been when those areas have, when those borders have been gray. And because, at the end of the day, we're not two people. We are each individuals, and we have to have our own autonomy, and we have to have our own mastery. And we have to have our own ambitions and our own views, working together in partnership to try to build something, as not only husband and wife, but also, whatever our positions, whatever our titles are at the moment. I don't know. They change regularly.
They'll be changing again soon.
Depending on who I'm speaking with. So that's exactly. So those have been some learnings, but another big one, I would say, is, again, not to blow our own trumpet, but Laura and I are very competent. We wouldn't be in where we are today if we hadn't been super competent at a lot of things. Okay. So we're, the whole jack of all trades, master of none. We are effectively those two people. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, you tend to rely on that overcompetence, by not asking for help, by not training one's help, by not writing down what you do, by not spending the time to nurture and develop people quickly enough. And I would say, if I had to look back and think about one of the biggest learning experiences I've had, is not staffing up soon enough, because again, it's all about self-responsibility. We have been the architects of our own limitations, and the chief route to that the chief factor in that, I would say, is not just making decisions for others that we should let them make for themselves, but also in not empowering others to assist us and to find their own goals and ambitions through the vehicle that we call our business, not necessarily just ourselves.
Got it.
And so that's been also a huge limiter on our growth and on our ability to live lives that are not dependent entirely on working pretty much every single day of every single hour of the day. Yeah. Now that comes in ebbs and flows. Of course, when we're less busy, we can relax, and we feel a little bit more like we're in control of our business. But in times like these, where we've just sold half of our year in a month, we are back again in that hamster wheel of doing way too much with way too little. So one of the things that we have learned that we must do, and we've been working at it, is writing down what we do, SOPs, how-tos, making them easily accessible, videoing everything that we can to make it super easy to learn from if you're new, and to slowly delegate what we do to others and give them the ability and capability to actually do it to our standard. And that's the other thing too, is we're probably a little too perfectionist. When you become almost unified with your business, there could be no more unification than calling your business your own name, and that's exactly what we've done.
I know, it's your surnames.
It is us. It is us, and
it is totally you.
And for many years, it has been us, and unfortunately, we can't grow until we start to release that us in that business. We have to be us in the business, working on the business while others work in the business, and enabling that to happen has been a real trial, and it's hard, and we're in the process of doing it. But that is, I believe with all the certainty in my heart, that is the route forward. And it's, we have to do it.
I love working with husband and wife teams and talking to them, and it's something that's a huge passion of mine. Do you have any tips or advice for, is there, like, because I'm always fascinated by it as well, as going on how you make that switch from, no, we're not talking about business now. Is there a defined, do you have a word or a moment, or you go, okay, because, and especially now, you guys were in an office, now you're home, so it's home, it's marriage, it's the business, it's the everything all together. Is there any tip that you would get, if there's a husband and wife teams, and I've worked with loads of them, and there's loads of them around the world, which is fascinating, in all types of business. Is there any way, any tradition you do, or any ritual you do, or any tips you could give to help with that separation of, okay, we're now a couple again, we're not the business partners, or does it just all melt into one?
Well, my biggest tip to anyone is to grow old, because as you age, you just don't have the energy to work as long as you did when you were young. So biology is going to get in your way.
There's a good one. Keep getting, stay alive.
Just stay alive. My number one advice to every agency owner on this podcast is to stay alive. Okay. But
another Rod Pearl.
Yes, another Rod Pearl. You heard it here first. So, but no, in all seriousness, I think that while there is definitely a kernel of truth in that, and why it's so incredibly important to get balance before you have balance imposed upon you. Number one is to definitely plan your time. Plan your time. If you don't plan your time, this is another thing I've learned through Digital Marketer, which was actually kind of an adaptation from Michael Hyatt with his time blocking.
Got it. Yeah.
Years ago, we used our calendar for events, for meetings. Yeah.
Yeah. For business.
And yes. And everything. And so you'd look at a typical calendar in our days, and it would be like, oh, I have a meeting here with a client. That's what the one thing I have today. And I have another check-in meeting perhaps here. And I have another meeting over there on Thursday. And it was basically a lot of white with just a few colors. And what that means is that if you don't, you have basically all of that white space to fill with all of the things that you'd love to do and need to do. And therefore, what do? You fill it. All right. I don't remember the name of the principle, but it's this principle that if you, as the time expands, so does the work.
Got it. Yeah. If you've got 15 minutes to do something, or an hour to do something,
you do it.
You've got an hour. It's going to take you an hour. You got 15 minutes.
Exactly.
Somehow you'll do it in 15 minutes.
So a critical, and I wouldn't have put these two things together like as a kind of causal and result kind of situation. But when we started planning our days using time blocking and identifying, I'm going to do this here and this there, and linking that up with our project management system, we really were a bit of a free-for-all, a bit of a Wild West when it comes to how we managed our time. And when that happens, you do work the evenings, you do work the weekends. So putting those blocks in the calendar really, really demarcated, this is work time. Yeah. And that means do your work then. And so it became very clear to us that, if you are going to decide, and of course, as an entrepreneur, you have to decide. Sometimes I can't be the 9-to-5er, but I am going to make a deliberate decision to work that evening, or I'm going to make a deliberate decision to work that weekend or part of that weekend. It puts you in control, as opposed to being controlled by, well, I could be watching Netflix, but my guilt is telling me I should be working on my business. Yeah. So that's I think that planning your time is critical, and I would recommend watching that Ryan Dice 1-hour course that he did on
how he blocks his day and how he and how he plans his day. And that probably
game changer.
It's great. It's incredible. I know I saw it pop up again. I've been practicing some of that. It's been really, really helpful. And I suppose the same thing when Laura can see that it's setting those expectations to go, oh, I thought we were going to do that this weekend. It stops that kind of carry on, as well, this presumption of, what do you mean you're working? She can see in your calendar, you talk about going, look, I'm going to tackle that this Saturday because I'm going to have a break in the morning and things like that. Yeah.
And the knock-on effect has been, we've kind of become a culture now that if it's not in the calendar, it doesn't exist.
Doesn't happen.
And that's a reality. You know,
and that's okay.
We all say things. Oh, I want to do this one day. I want to,
yeah.
you know, I want to do that. But unless it's in the calendar, it's just not going to happen. So what that does is it makes the calendar real.
Yeah.
And then what's that also done? The knock-on effect is that if we want to do something for leisure, if we want to do something for fun, put it in the calendar, right? It's like, and what that does is it helps us again take control and say, oh no, we can't just work that weekend because we have other plans. I mean, I can't believe it. I would end up on Friday, and you know how people on Friday around, you know, your employees, your team will say, hey, the whole conversation is always, yay, what are you doing this weekend? Right? So what you guys doing this weekend? Or sometimes on Monday, it was like, so what did you guys do in the weekend? Right? That's a constant, you know, Monday and Friday conversation.
You're right. Yeah.
Laura and I would always be like, nothing. We have no plans.
And that's before quarantine.
This was before quarantine. Another reason why we've been so successful during this quarantine period, because we're used to doing nothing.
It's like, oh, my quarantine life looks a lot like my normal life. Interesting.
But the reality is that we were so busy that we would fail to plan for our free time. And when you do that, you don't prioritize it.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you allow for your other things to seep into that time, and then you become a workaholic, and then you burn out, and then you have arguments, and then and then it's a vicious cycle of
you resent then and going, I don't want this business, I want to have a normal life, you know, and that's where it all creeps in.
The moment you start looking in LinkedIn, you know, when sometimes you get those messages and they say, we have an opportunity for you. The moment you open up those emails, that's a red flag. There's something wrong.
There's definitely something wrong there. And no harm, I say this to agency owners all the time, and especially right now, especially at this moment in time, if you are not absolutely excited, looking forward and passionate about getting back into it, or really every part of your body is going through, what can I do, how can I do, if you are apathetic about it, please don't drag any people in it. Go and find a job. Like there is going to be a ton of in-house marketing
100%.
And there is no harm in doing that. There's hundreds of agency owners who have gone back into a company, into working in a marketing job. That's totally fine. Please don't drag a load of people along with it by pretending you still want to be an agency owner. And that don't, check your ego and go, are you just worried what everyone will think? Because nobody cares, especially once everyone gets back. We're all going to be so busy figuring out this new world. So if it's not in your whole blood and your whole system, now is the time to be real with yourself and do everyone a favor. Everyone's going to find jobs, right?
Exactly
because
right.
Now people are employing all over the world. So there'll be plenty for that. You also, one of the things I noticed, and we had talked about it during the week, was your exercise is a very key part to you. Do you book that in as well? Now, I know you said sometimes it just can get moved around, especially you guys were kind of locked in and weren't really allowed to get out, maybe a walk, but you weren't really allowed to get out that much. But exercise is a good part of what you do as well. You found that to be a game changer when you were working in the business.
Absolutely huge. Exercise, taking care of yourself is an absolute game changer. I mean, you are effectively the best representation of what's inside you and your ability to bring everything you've got and the energy. Again, especially as you age. I mean, I'm 49 right now, and when I was around, when we work in computers, when we work on in what we do, we sit a lot, right? This is what we do. What's your activity? I like to sit. So
and get lost in things like 4 hours will go by and you go, why is my bum numb?
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I've been doing this for 4 hours.
And when you work as much as people in this business do, if they own it, you sit a lot, and you say no to a lot of the things you used to do, which kept you fit and active. And it's not just about keeping your body fit and active, it's about keeping your brain fit and active, because your body, really, really influences how well your brain works as well.
Yes.
So as I noticed again in retrospect, and I didn't mention that this was a major issue, but I have to take responsibility for being one of the limiters of our own business, because as I was, I worked super, 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 super hard during my 30s because I had nothing but energy. And I could just really, really power through. And I literally could move mountains. It was unbelievable the amount of power I had to just do. But as I aged and as I got into my 40s, I started to slow down because my body started catching up with me, and you know, these extra few pounds turned into an extra 10, and which ended up being an extra 20, and literally at one point I weighed 215 pounds, and on my frame.
Yeah, we'll preface that with how tall you are, Rod.
I am 3.5 feet tall.
No, the point is you're not 7 foot. You're not 7'1". You're not a basketball player.
Exactly right. Yeah, I'm a man of Latin descent. I am only 5'6", and so but of course, like most men, you think you're amazing, you think you're awesome. And I had no real idea, where I was getting myself to. And then I walked into a checkup because, when you're in your 40s, you start to do that.
Get the checkups. Yeah.
And the doctor said to me, Rod, you're pre-diabetic. And it was like, what?
Wow.
And up until that point, I literally had to, I had no concept that I was even remotely fallible, let alone on the edge of a disease that could really, really hamper my existence. And so
absolutely,
that was a wake-up call. And I had kind of in reflection, I looked at the last few years that had got me to this point, and I realized I had been, and you'll know my language here when I say I had very, very much been in the tunnel. And we got to come back at some point, maybe with Laura, and talk about how this relates to couples working together.
Absolutely.
And also how it relates to working with, members of different sexes as your customers and in your employee situations. But anyway, that's another.
We're totally doing another episode.
Oh, that'd be lovely. But I was so much in the tunnel, and basically what the tunnel, for those of you who don't know what that means, is I had pretty much run up to the edge of everything I felt I had achieved, and I had started questioning: is this all there is? And is this what it's all cracked up to be? I don't have the world's greatest business. I'm not internationally renowned. I'm not, I don't have this big team that I've nurtured and developed over years. What do I have? I just have, this shingle with my name on it. And then I decided that, especially the impetus really was that stimulus of, hey, you're pre-diabetic. At that point, we went on holiday. And when you're on holiday, you have some time to think. And I decided to say to Laura at that moment that I was going to commit to her birthday, because we happened to be away for her birthday. And I said to her, for your birthday, I will be gifting you a brand new me. And that in that moment, well, 5 minutes before that moment, I had decided that I was going to completely change how I approached my personal well-being. So basically the day after we returned back from the holiday, I signed up with a personal trainer, and I hit it really, really hard. And it was a massive change in my lifestyle. And I had to put it into my diary. I had to block the time out. I had to say no to other things. And I have to decide that it's okay to work on me. Yeah. I don't just have to work on everyone else's priorities.
The business and everything. And because you're a business owner, you do make that sacrifice. You feel guilty for every second you're away from it.
Yeah.
Even if you are going to watch Netflix, I think we're all, we have the laptops out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or we have a notebook beside us and we're doing a sneaky bit of work. It's very 100%. Difficult to be present, and very difficult to take that time out to go, I am going to go for a walk and do nothing. I'm not even going to listen to anything. Because we're like, I'll listen to an audiobook and a podcast while I'm doing this. We overdrive ourselves when we're working in our own business.
Exactly right. And yeah, again, we are our own worst enemies. I mean, we do it for all the good reasons, but it's in the end, it's counterproductive. So after that year-long process, I ended up dropping a massive amount of weight. And I'm now at the point where I am, I've lost, I stopped being about the number, but it's now like, 60 pounds down. So, that's a third of my body.
It's another person.
It is another person that me and my personal trainer, took our big block of marble and chipped away at for a whole 2.5 years. And then here I am. And here's the thing. the physical changes are one thing, and they're wonderful. And, you know, at 49 years old, I feel in the peak of my level of fitness and my ability to be confident in my own body. But I had actually, you know, I'm a speaker, I get in front of audiences, I get on video, and now that I've gained it back, I didn't realize how much confidence I had lost.
Right.
And now I feel like I have not only the self-confidence to do excellently on my job, but I also have the humility that age has brought with it to keep a balance. And that balance for me has been one of the most outstanding aspects of my development over the last 5 years. And it has absolutely no doubt had a tremendous effect on my ability to produce business, to deliver value for my clients, and also to nurture and care for my team. Yeah. And so that's been an absolute game changer. I cannot recommend it enough. It is not only fantastic for yourself and your family. I am now in a position where I don't feel like I'm going to leave Laura behind holding the bag. Yeah. And that's worth everything to me.
Huge. The mental clarity and the resilience as well, because once you have that feeling of not only physical strength and your body feels good, your mind clicks in and you feel really good, and your ability to just handle things. I think that's something I've definitely noticed over the last few years as well, just with lifting, with powerlifting, with competing, with my ability, as you do each thing, even if it's just lifting something heavy in the gym, that just tricks something into your mind. Absolutely. That makes you feel stronger, and your ability to handle things and also not instantly react, not be so negative, not be so foggy in your brain. You can kind of listen and accept things, detach, move, you know, space it out, and then handle it from a different mindset. Rod, this has been an incredible conversation. We started out, I was like, oh, we'll talk for about 30 minutes. We're here an hour and a half. This is amazing, and I've loved every second of it. I want to just leave today with just some tips and advice. If we were sitting here, what would you really recommend agencies? We've talked about, you know, going super niche, but also looking at geography right now. We've given so many tips and advice, but is there any book, course, resource, tip, or anything that you would love to give as an agency who's probably going through a bit of a, you know, right now, most of the agencies are in that lull patch. I've been speaking to a few of them at the moment, that patch of boredom where we're waiting for things to happen. They don't know what's happening, and it's not a good space for agencies to be in. They love the excitement. They love to do things. But what advice would you give agencies in this kind of lull patch that's going on right now that you could help them with?
That's such a great question. My goodness, I could probably you know, it's one of those questions that you could probably give like an hour's worth of answers, but then when asked to name one, you're at a loss. Yeah. but I would say that if I would go in one direction is to if you're not fortunate enough to be flooded with business, then this is the time to work on yourself. Yeah. And one of the coolest things I saw that was done by Digital Marketer, that community, is that they opened up their resources to, you know, they opened up lab and they opened up their courses out to the general community. I think that's over now. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they've extended. I don't know, because I'm a paying member. But the thing is that so many people got benefit from going and taking those courses. And yes, they all took them really, really quickly. And, you know, there's a lot of cramming going on, and will they retain everything? I don't know. But yeah, the key thing here is that has been such a game changer for us to understand our craft, to really, really, you know, toss out the extras and focus on the core of what it means to take somebody from where they are now to where they want to go. And that has had so many incredible, you know, second and third order effects in terms of how we see everything, that I would say that's an absolute first place to go to become really, really educated about what it is that you do and the value you bring into your customers. And so that you can then, you know, make them more successful customers, which is at the end of the day what we're all here to do. That's one thing. Another thing I would do is I would look at, and we haven't talked about it, but I think that the notion of the story brand. I think everybody, everybody in digital marketer, probably recommends this book. I couldn't, is it Dennis Miller? I can't remember his name.
I'll put a link in the show notes.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is.
That book has completely revolutionized the way that I have seen how our customers are positioning themselves as heroes instead of guides. And it's also helped me position myself as a guide to my customer and making them the hero. And that has, again, also had not just, and also thinking about staff too, and
right.
making them the heroes of their own story. I mean, it has so many branches and applications that I would suggest reading that book is literally, it's like, what did I think before story brand and what did I think after story brand?
Yeah.
And that's how seminal it is. And, if I had to, I'm sincerely at a loss for other ones, but, one book that I have been going back again and again to over the years, and it has never let me down. And it probably, I have to equate to everything that I've learned over the last 20 years was basically predicted in that book.
Right.
Is Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Oh, absolutely. You could read that every year.
Absolutely. There has never been a volume that in my mind is more true, more applicable, more reliable, more certain than that. And if you haven't read it, because maybe, it's old, I don't know when it came out. It came out maybe 30 years ago.
Yeah, it's out a long time. It's had a couple of revisions on it, I think, as well. Yeah.
So maybe it's not in your universe right now, but I strongly recommend you digging up that title, reading it cover to cover, and like me, reading it again immediately afterwards, and really, really becoming, immersed in that material, because it is an absolute mind bender. Like it is a, when you read that, you realize, that's where all my problems have been coming from.
Yeah.
Me.
Okay.
and yeah, but not only that, but it just gives you a really, really, many people say that life doesn't come with an instruction book, but if there was an instruction book that came close, it'd be that book. So I would recommend that.
Incredible. Rod, it's been an absolute, we could be here all day. We're going to follow this up. We are definitely going to have yourself and Laura on, because I definitely want to talk about the communication skills and styles. And as I said in the beginning, I bang on about a few different books when I talk to agency owners, Traction by Gina Wickman being one. But since you introduced me to Alison Armstrong, I've been like in her webinars, soaking up the books, reading the books. And as much as I go for agency owners, Traction, for all of my friends, I am Keys the Kingdom, Alison Armstrong over here.
That's huge.
I've sounded like a broken record. Any friend that rings me and is like, oh my God, my boyfriend isn't doing this or doing that, I'm like, it's because blah, 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 blah. And you need to get the Keys the Kingdom. But I definitely want us to do another episode on that. Thank you so much for sharing just a small portion of your journey with us here today. I absolutely love this conversation. And thank you so much.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much as well for inviting me and giving me the opportunity.
Delighted to have you on. It was brilliant. And we will see everyone in another episode of Agency Live. Thank you.